Imagine you are standing in the center of a bustling high school hallway as the morning bell rings. It is a wall of sound, shouting, laughter, footsteps. But look closer at the students. They are not looking at each other. They are not walking with heads held high. Instead, every single one of them is hunched over, their faces illuminated by the blue light of a smartphone screen. I am Pennsylvania State Representative Mandy Steele, and I introduced House Bill 1814 because I realized that for too many of our children, this digital tether has become a cage. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why phone-free school days are becoming a modern necessity and how one state is fighting to reclaim the classroom. There is a movement growing in schools across this country, and the final result might just surprise you. So grab a cup of water, pull up a chair, and let us look at the reality of the digital landscape in our schools. As a mother of four children attending public schools, I have had a front row seat to the transformation of the student experience. It is not just a hunch or a parental grievance. I have watched the constant pull of notifications compete with the most essential parts of childhood: friendship, focus, and curiosity. This concern followed me from my kitchen table to the floor of the State House in Harrisburg. I knew that standing by while an entire generation loses its ability to connect in person was not an option. House Bill 1814 proposes a simple but radical shift, requiring students to store their phones in a locker, a pouch, or a secure bag for the entire bell to bell duration of the school day. Now, the pushback was immediate and predictable. Parents worry, and as a parent, I truly feel that fear. What if there is an emergency? How will I reach my child? But look at the data provided by experts like Beth J. Sanborn, the president of the Pennsylvania Association of School Resource Officers. She has explained that during an active emergency, individual students flooding the network with calls or texts creates chaos. It spreads misinformation and complicates the job of first responders who are trying to keep kids safe. The most reliable path in an emergency remains the official communication channel of the school district, which functions best when it is not overwhelmed by thousands of personal devices. We are not cutting off contact. We are creating a system that keeps the focus where it belongs during a crisis, on the safety instructions from those in charge. If you are finding this helpful, hit subscribe. I share these deep dives into public policy every single week. Now, here is where the argument moves from fear to hard evidence. This is not about being anti technology. This is about recognizing the physiological and psychological impact of persistent distraction. In 2024, the National Education Association conducted a poll. They found that 90% of teachers believe phones should be tucked away during instructional time, and 75% argue for an entire day ban. That is not a small margin of opinion. That is a consensus from the professionals on the front lines of our children's development. Consider the testimony of Dr. Mitch Prinstein, the chief of psychology for the American Psychological Association. He pointed out something fascinating during a joint hearing of the House Education and Health Committees. It is not just the student using the phone who is harmed. The distraction ripples outward, affecting the focus of every student sitting within visual range of that glowing screen. It lowers academic achievement across the board. When you see the correlation between the rise of smartphones and the spike in teen anxiety and depression, you realize that the phone in the pocket is actually a barrier to the real world we keep telling them to get ready for. True freedom is not being perpetually tethered to a feedback loop of algorithms and social comparison. True freedom is the ability to engage, to think, and to grow without an addictive secondary brain guiding every impulse. Okay, remember how I said there is a surprise waiting at the finish line? We have living examples in Pennsylvania showing us exactly what happens when the phones go away. Look at Woodland Hills High School. They implemented a policy where phones are collected in the morning. The result? A measurable decrease in cyberbullying and physical altercations. And listen to the sound of the cafeteria. It is no longer a silent room of scrolling thumbs. It is loud with laughter, debates, and actual board games. At Carlinton Junior Senior High School, students use magnetically locked pouches. One student, Safa Al-Nahaz, described how lunchtime has been transformed back into a social space where they play games like Uno. That is not a minor adjustment to a policy. That is a fundamental reclamation of human connection. Even in districts like Bethel Park, where students initially pushed back hard, the shift in attitude has been profound. Once the phones were placed in wall-mounted holders during class, the students themselves admitted to feeling a sense of relief. The constant pressure to be on vanished. The assistant superintendent there noted that the soft skills of basic human interaction are reemerging in ways we haven't seen in a decade. Even in the Montoursville area school district, students have told their administrators that they know they are addicted to the device and they appreciate the school environment being a sanctuary from that pull. It turns out that young people are just as aware of the trap as we are, and they are often the ones most relieved to see the gate lock shut for the day. Of course, we have to talk about the logistics. Systems like Yonder pouches cost money, usually between $30 and $35 per student. That is why the legislation is not just about mandates, it is about resources. We are looking at ways to provide grants and state funding to ensure that no district is left behind simply because of a line item in their budget. This is an investment in the human capital of our Commonwealth. Every dollar spent on a storage pouch or a secure locker is a dollar spent on protecting the attention span of the next generation. That is a bargain in my book. People sometimes ask me if this is a battle against the future. They argue that schools should teach kids how to manage technology rather than banning it. But I ask you, would you expect an athlete to train for the Olympics while surrounded by distractions that make it physically impossible to focus on the game? The school building is a dedicated space for learning. We need to treat it as such. We teach kids how to drive by putting them in a controlled, safe environment first, not by tossing them into the middle of a racetrack. Digital literacy is a lesson for home and for specific curriculum units, but during the 8 hours they are under our care, we have a duty to create a sanctuary where they can be human without the interference of a digital corporation's bottom line. This effort has gained momentum with support from both sides of the aisle. Governor Josh Shapiro has publicly endorsed the push for statewide phone free policies, and similar bills in the Senate show that the tide is truly turning. We are witnessing a rare moment of unity because the evidence is just too clear to ignore. From the teachers in the front of the room to the parents at the dinner table, we are all beginning to see the same thing. The era of the open phone classroom is coming to an end, and a new era of focus and engagement is beginning. So there you go. Three pillars of this movement: protecting the sanctity of the classroom, relying on teacher expertise, and proving that students are actually happier when they are disconnected. This fight in Pennsylvania is just the beginning. We are not just changing rules, we are changing the culture of our schools. If this topic matters to you, share this video with a parent or a teacher who is feeling the weight of the digital divide. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next update on this legislative battle, and stick around for next week, where I will be exploring the hidden costs of social media on teenage brain chemistry. We are just scratching the surface of what it means to grow up in the 21st century, and I am glad you are along for the journey. Keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep standing up for what matters.